Testing. Good evening, my viewer. Welcome to Q&A, Wednesday's Q&A with Bro.Diallo. Good to have you. Just throw the volume on the ambience. Let's turn that down a bit. All right. Good evening for the Wednesday night Q&A. A couple of minutes late, but better late than never. Of course, I'm Bro.Diallo with the Bro.Diallo broadcast. I do a Wednesday Q&A. Generally, I have guests sometimes, and sometimes it's just me. This evening it's just me. I think I have a guest lined up, but I'm not sure because next Wednesday I definitely will have some out-of-town visitors. So I'm not sure if I have to check my schedule for next week. So this is a good Q&A to get in on because next week's Q&A just may not. We might skip next week, but that's up to y'all. Please let me know if you're having any issues with audio, hearing, or anything. Everything looks good on my end, but if we do start having issues, I'll be more than happy to try to troubleshoot them. So anyway, I'm ready to get started. Good evening, anyone. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, insights to share, I think you know the format. You can type in your question. I'll pull it up and answer it as best I can. If I don't have an answer, I will try to seek out an answer. If I can't seek out an answer and you totally stump me, then maybe we can revisit it next week, or I'll just be stumped. So it's pretty informal. I really enjoy these Q&As. I really appreciate everyone taking a moment to kick in with the Q's and A's. So please let me know what you'd like to know, what you think, what you'd like to hear. It's good to see Facebook is up and going because Facebook stay giving me headaches. All right, so we got our first question. Thank you for not letting me flounder for too long. And again, if you have any issues with the audio, if I'm not coming through clearly or whatever, please let me know. But anyway, 4411-825 asks, what is your take on the ongoing, on what's going on in Haiti? Oh, gosh. Let me just pause this for a second. I didn't pause it. I muted it. I have a lot to say about Haiti. But I think you're speaking more to the Moïse, Jovenel Moïse. I know I'm butchering his name. I can't say it with the Creole accent. It sounds a pretty nice name. Jovenel Moïse. It's a catch-22. When Dr. King was assassinated, years after Dr. King was assassinated, Dale Jones has stated he didn't agree with what Dr. King stood for. He didn't agree with Dr. King's objectives, and he wouldn't even consider himself an ally of Dr. King because he felt that he and Dr. King and Malcolm X had divergent goals. Whereas Dr. King wanted to make America better and secure Black people's place in the United States, people like Malcolm X and Dale Jones wanted to dismantle the American empire and make a place for African people apart, separate, and distant from the American empire. So, but he still said, even though I did not agree with Dr. King, didn't consider, I even oftentimes found myself at odds with Dr. King and his objective. Nobody had a right to ice my brother like that. So that's kind of my position on Jovenel Moïse. I did not like him, not personally. Of course, I didn't know him, but I didn't like his politics. I felt that Jovenel was a puppet of Western powers. Jovenel was much like Barack Obama, a charismatic and if you go on YouTube and look at some of his interviews and you'd see him at like Haiti Carnival and he's with the people, he's a very personable, charismatic political figure. But he used the amount of love he was generating from the people, which is called social capital, When you have the support of your community, of the grassroots, if you're a progressive leader, then you have a lot of influence amongst the people. That's called social capital. And you can accumulate social capital, but then you have to say, how am I going to spend my social capital? How am I going to utilize this influence I have over the people? And what Jovenel did was take his social capital and take it to the West, take it to France, take it to the United States, take it to Canada and other Western imperial capitalist powers and say, listen, I've got some standing and some clout, and I can make things happen for you. I can make things happen for you in Haiti. And also the Clinton Foundation and Bill and Hillary Clinton, who just, even from when they were in office and they overthrew the Lava Las movement and they kidnapped Aristide and then put him back in power, the Clintons and I might just talk about the Clintons. I don't know if anybody even wants to hear about the Clintons. Maybe let those dead dogs be dead dogs. But Clintons are very influential in the Democratic Party, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Long story short, that he was a Western puppet. He took his clout, his standing, his status in Haiti to serve the interest of Western powers. So because of that, I do not like him as a politician. I do not mourn his loss. But I will say, like Dale Jones says, I do not appreciate, I do not support foreign interest taking the lives of people within our communities or within power. That should be up to the citizens. That should have been up to the citizens of Haiti to take him out of power. It should have been up to the citizens of Haiti to determine how he would go and what, because he did commit crimes against the people. Jovenel had this gang called the G9, and the G9 in Haiti was basically a street gang that ran guns, extortion, sex rackets, basically your basic street gang. 9 powerful gangs came together for the G9 gang in Haiti under the leadership, the man's name escapes me now, but there was a corrupt police official who was basically ran out of power in Haiti because he was brought up on some corruption charges, and he said that they were trumped up charges. So he went from being a ranking official within the Haitian National Police Force to running the largest, most powerful gang in Haiti. And the gang, during the most recent upheavals, people taken to the streets because of the quarantine, they didn't have again, same complaints that's been going on against the Haitian government since the fall of the Duvalier dictatorships. Lack of infrastructure development, lack of food security, lack of job security, lack of housing and housing security, all the shit that the government is failing to do. They decided, they basically got on the payroll of the Moise government, and they didn't want the Haitian official police and military to be seen murdering leaders of the uprising and murdering protesters. So they hired these gang members to identify who was leading the protest, who were prominent members of the protest, and they would murder these people, burn their houses down. They would take elderly people and toss them off the roof of houses. That's what Jovenel was doing to Haitian people, Haitian protesters. Oh, yes. Jimmy Barbecue. That was his name. Thank you. And he was committing atrocities against his own people in order to stay in power, because he was trying to say, basically, there was some technicality where he asserted that he had an additional year in power. And the people say, we want a new governing body. We want a new governing administration. We are not happy with how you get down. So basically, he ordered this street gang to attack his people. So I don't mourn his loss. I don't think that his absence from Haitian politics or his absence from the earth is necessarily negative for the Haitian people. But the fact that a prominent Haitian politician can be touched by foreign powers and foreign influence is a bad thing, whether it's a good politician or not. You know, it's like Dale Jones said, they don't have a right to smoke our brothers. Even if we are in conflict with another black person, that's a family, that's an internal conflict, you know. And as much as the average American citizen hated Donald Trump, there was a lot of hate for Donald Trump. Donald Trump mobilized masses of people. The last election in the United States had the highest voter turnout. The entire time that Trump was in office, he never rose above 40%. He never had majority vote support in the American electorate. He didn't win majority vote in the general election. In poll after poll, he was one of the most unpopular presidents ever elected. And he not only was he so unpopular that he lost his position in the government, he cost his party the House, the Senate, and the White House. But despite all of that, if some foreign interests came, some foreign soldiers or mercenaries came and did to Trump what happened to Jovenel, the entire American populace, including the anti-Trump people, the people who never voted for and hated Trump, they would rise up and say, "Oh, we got to go like George Bush said, we got to go kick some ass and take names," or whatever that redneck shit they like to say, threatening other nations. Because they were like, he may be a scumbag, but he's our scumbag for us to deal with on our terms. Because that's what power is. That's what sovereignty is. So that's how I feel. Even though I don't mourn his death, nor do I celebrate his death, but I don't mourn his absence. But I do celebrate his absence from power. And people are like, oh, things are going to get bad now. No, things were already bad. Now things, because there is a power vacuum, things are moving. It's better to have upheaval when there's a potential to change things for the better than stagnation and status quo, from my point of view. Not that I wish that on the Haitian people, but the fact that I see so many Haitians who I think personally should know better, mourning his loss. I lament the way he went out, but I don't lament the fact that he went out, and I don't think that that he deserves to be remembered fondly, even though he was taken out in a relatively unfortunate manner. Now, if it was the Haitian people that dragged his ass out of the mansion, the presidential mansion, then I would celebrate that. I would not. I'd be like, yeah, if the revolutionary elements or the re-emerging Lavalas movement asserted and dragged his ass out of there, then I'd be like, this is wonderful. But I don't think that he deserves our support because he didn't support the people when he was in power. He exploited the people. And another thing he did, Venezuela gave Haiti over $1 billion in aid through what they call the Petra Libre Fund. And he took that money and pocketed it. I think it's really fucking disgusting that these super multimillionaires are every fucking president that's over a third world country has millions and millions of dollars. And like when his wife got shot, because his wife was also injured in the assault, but because he had billions of dollars in his personal account, but he didn't invest in building up the infrastructure of Haiti, his wife was flown to the United States to get medical treatment. His wife, whenever these petty bourgeoisie African puppet dictators or Caribbean puppet dictators or Latin American puppet dictators, whenever they get in trouble, whenever they have medical issues, whenever they want their child to go on for higher education, they send their child to the West. And many of them have, your beloved Mugabe. Mugabe talked about the white man and how the white man doesn't run anything and he was going to chase out the white man or kill all the white people. When he got sick, they either go to the United States, Western Europe, or they might go to Dubai or Saudi Arabia, another puppet regime, in order to get health care because they don't use their billions of dollars. They don't use their money to build up the people. Even Zuma, when Zuma is over an impoverished country in South Africa, and he's worth tens of millions of dollars. Even the United States president doesn't make. You got presidents of like impoverished countries with high poverty rates that make more money annually than the U.S. president. So I'm just not with that. So anyway, I think it's unfortunate how he died because it points to the vulnerability and if they could touch or if they could go in and murder a corrupt president then they have just as much access to go in and murder a just president, a true, just, principled leader. We need to set up our infrastructures, whether it's a black movement, liberation movement within the United States, or it's a black sovereign nation in Africa or the Caribbean. All black nations need to build up the infrastructure to protect our leadership from foreign influence. All black leaders should be vulnerable to internal unrest. All of our leaders should be vulnerable to the people they serve. They should not be vulnerable to people outside the nation and outside the movement. And that's all I have to say about that. Good evening, bro. James, good to see you. Tito, what are your thoughts on permaculture and regeneration as some of the tools for tackling climate change? The problem with that, with permaculture, I think I support permaculture. I support reforestation. I support reasserting the ecosystems. But the problem with that is I don't see anywhere or any way that permaculture, reforestation, ecosystem reclamation, and recovery can outpace capitalist expansion. So what you will basically do is, while the capitalists are ravaging large parts of the planet, and then you go to some area where capitalists don't have interest, because you can't go to New York City and start to, because that's where they're making money. You can't go to an oil field. We saw when the Native Americans in the United States, in the Lakotas, and along the that pipeline, when the natives stood up to protect their lands, they got gunned down, they got murdered. So if you're going to do permaculture and regeneration, you will have to go to an area where the capitalists don't currently have any infrastructure or any interest. So first thing you would have to do is find places on the earth that are more and more limited, that doesn't have any infrastructure and doesn't have any capitalist investment or interest, which means it can't be private property or property that the capitalists believe they can exploit for profit, or that they haven't built up, where they don't have buildings and fences and barbed wire and shit. So when you find that place and you begin planting trees, setting up food floors, creating habitats for the natural fauna, for the natural animals, the moment you regenerate that place, the moment you rebuild that place, that is the very moment where you make it something where capitalists will have interest in it. And I don't care if you go to places like Southern California, Oakland, where they take abandoned warehouse field and parking lots and turn it into green space, or you go to somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa and you start to reforestate. The moment you start to regenerate and build up something, the capitalist is going to eventually identify where you are and say, hey, I can make some money here. I can go exploit whatever they've planted and extracted. I can turn it into a vacation spot. Now that's a desirable area. At first, it wasn't desirable because it was exploited and abandoned and burnt down or overbuilt. But now through permaculture and regeneration, they've made it a beautiful place. I want to go there and build condos, or I want to go build a place where people can, I want to build a place where people can go on vacation. So how do you stop the fucking capitalists from doing that? By convincing them, hey, this is a place we've did permaculture and we regenerated, and the native birds and the native amphibians are thriving once again. He's like, yeah, that's why I can fucking make some money over here. So you can't just do permaculture and regeneration without doing revolution. You have to tear down the capitalist infrastructure as you build up the ecological infrastructure or the ecological ecosystem. You can't just do one. Because if you do one without the other, only thing you're doing is setting up a place for the capitalists to come snatch from you. And if they can't buy it from you, say, well, we won't sell, then they'll be like, oh, then you're a communist or you're a terrorist, and we have to come there and liberate you. We have to come there and do humanitarian efforts. And they send in the fucking Marines, or they send in the economic hitmen and devalue the currency of the place you're doing it, or hire some local oligarchs to come in and or build a death squad. Or they'll send in the Marines and straight up military shit. Or these motherfuckers are so sick, they'll be like, well, we tried to do a death squads, but they had guerrilla forces and they fought us. And they had armed insurgency and they drove us out. Nuke the motherfucker, because if I can't have it, like, or they'll set up an embargo and not allow the resources you need to come in or out. They do that shit in so many fucking ways. So I think that it is absolutely necessary. Plant trees, create natural habitats for the local wildlife, eat a vegan fucking diet, ride your bike instead of using a car, use public transit, try to avoid using use trains to travel across the country instead of airplanes. I'm for all that shit. But as we do the things necessary to preserve what is left of the planet and to regenerate what we can on the planet, we have to destroy capitalist infrastructure. We have to dismantle the military and do away with Western imperial armies. We have to do away with industrial development. We have to do away with capitalism. We have to do away with resource accumulation, resource exploit. We have to do away with fossil fuels. We have to do away with nuclear energy. There's so many people that think in terms of we could just do the right thing and let that bad shit go on in the background while we just keep doing the right thing. And whether that's ecological, oh, we'll do permaculture and regeneration, whether that's cultural, well, black people will just be the most upstanding, righteous, well-read and educated and moral black people we can be, and focus on ourselves and let white folks do what they do, when what they're doing is setting up to continue our exploitation and oppression. So there's no way to do good without attacking bad. There's no way to build up good without tearing up bad. So I support that. And if you just say, look, I ain't got the stomach to fight this person, I'm going to do this ecological shit. You can support in what ways you can the people that are confronting the status quo, confronting the capitalist and the imperialist, or you can at the very least stay out of their way. So if the regenerators don't want to be with the people who are fighting on the political front, on the social front, people who are fighting on the nationalist front, and even people taking up arms against the system or rebelling against the system, stay out of each other's way if you can't work together, but never denounce. If you're doing peace work, healing work, don't denounce the people doing the rebellious work. And if you're doing rebellious work in the streets and battling, don't denounce the people doing the regeneration and the permaculture and work. The people with the guns should not be attacking the people with the trowels, because we are all working towards the same goal and we all feed each other in direction. So, oh yes, please click the like button to help me with the algorithm. Real talk, you know, get your tinfoil hats out. I forgot to tell people I got in trouble because I speculated that maybe, just maybe, I speculated in Diallo's conspiracy corner that Venezuela might have smoked Jovenel. The socialists, the Bolivarian revolutionaries might have got to his ass because he stole their money. And Jovenel didn't just steal money from Venezuela. After he was given the money to develop Haiti and he stole that money or misappropriated that money, They claim that his wealth was $4 to $7 million was his personal wealth. But I don't think they fully excavated how much money Moise had. I'm sure there were offshore and Swiss banks and all that dirty shit that every single dictator has, money laundering. He literally had gangsters working for him, so I'm pretty sure he was well versed in money. But after that, the United States is trying to do a coup d'etat, and they have a proxy uprising, a proxy coup happening in Venezuela. And Maduro is the president of Venezuela. But this guy named Juan Guaido, the U.S. government, Obama, and then Trump, and now Biden are saying this Juan Guaido, who's trying to overthrow the legitimate government of Venezuela to move it away from a socialist Bolivarian revolution and bring it back to a white-controlled capitalist oligarchy. Most countries don't recognize Juan Guaido. I think it's like Israel, the United States, and some other puppet regime. But most countries say we don't recognize Juan Guaido as the president. He's trying to overthrow the country. And Jovenel, 2 years after he got billions of dollars from Venezuela, turned around and endorsed the coup d'etat against the Venezuelan people. So not only did he rob you, he aided your enemy in overthrowing you. So I'm like, man, that's dirty. So I said, there's only two things that could have happened. The Haitian oligarchs and the Western puppet masters took him out, or maybe the Bolivarians took him out. The revolutionary guerrillas or hit team from Venezuela took him out. And people got so fucking mad at me. Man, they got mad for me to suggest that revolutionary forces can maybe do some dirt. We're the good guys. And I think people are more interested, leftist, so-called conscious people are more interested in being right than being successful. We're the good guys. We don't do assassinations. We don't do this insidious stuff. Like I tell black folks all the time, y'all always talk about how white people do divide and conquer against blacks. But we'll see two white factions warring against each other, and we won't jump in and support one over the other. I ain't voting for Bernie. I ain't doing this. We just try to stay out of their conflicts instead of manipulate their conflicts to our benefit. But if they see a Malcolm going up against an Elijah Muhammad, they jump right in. If they see some type of internal conflict in any of our nations or movement, white folks jump in the middle and try to manipulate it for their interest. But when we see white people banging, we won't even consider it because we're the good guys. We don't do such things, spying and espionage. But I digress. I'm saying all that to say, I think that my content is being suppressed online. And I ain't even going to get into the things. The reason I think that, I guess everybody who has political content thinks it. So if you could, like, share, subscribe, and help. You know, I don't have no sponsorship or nothing. You know, it's just me and Chauncey out here grinding. So if you can become a supporter, Cash App, but very importantly, like, share, subscribe, like brother Phil. Oh yeah, Phil helps out and all that. Please do. Chauncey, good evening, Chauncey. Good to see you. Shout out to co-conspirator number 2. Okay, 4411. Again, what are your thoughts on Black Power Media here on YouTube? Is it good quality programming for Africans to get information? Yeah, you know, that shit they did with Cornel West. I call him Cornel West. That shit they did with Cornel West. I don't think platforming Cornel West, you know what I mean? He gets on Democracy Now! He gets on CNN. I think they probably don't need to be platforming status quo mainstream Negroes. I think it would be better. But other than that, Dr. Ball is sharp as a cactus. You know, I think it was a year or two. Last year during the quarantine, I was called to speak on a panel with Dr. Ball. I don't like sitting next to Dr. Ball. He too smart, you know. I can't get my shine. It's like, you know, they want to, you know, I'm like, damn, I don't want to play Pippin to Dr. Ball's intellectual Jordan. So shout out to Dr. Ball. I got mad respect for what he says. Of course, Kalanji. You know, Mino Kalanji, so you know he gonna tell it. So far as I know, I catch more of Dreher Ball's content. So I follow his content, his writings, and his commentaries are primo. But I haven't heard it all. So yeah, as far as I know, I give it an endorsement. Except I wouldn't platform Cornel West. I remember there used to be Dr. John Henry Clark. There was the UAM, the United African Movement, would have free lectures. And the UAM, before there was YouTube, before there was even social media or the internet, the UAM was providing free weekly lectures for the Black community at the Slave Theater in Brooklyn. And at the Slave Theater in Brooklyn, they brought, you can't name an intellectual or scholarly heavyweight that they didn't bring to Brooklyn and allow the community to come in for free. And not only was that, every Wednesday, they would have good, wholesome food from vendors, African vendors with their wares, their arts and crafts, the drummers, some of the best, you know, Haitian Vodun drummers and African, Nigerian, and what was the Ghanaian drummers. It was every Wednesday was literally a community intellectual and cultural blowout every single Wednesday at a Black-owned venue in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Slave Theater, just off Nostrand. And they would bring people like Professor, people y'all hear me quote all the time. Dale Jones spoke there, Professor Mackey, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, of course, Dr. Marimba Ani, Dr. Francis Quest Welsing, Dr. Julia Hare, the brothers and the sisters, some of the greatest African-centered intellectual. Of course, Dr. Amos Wilson and Trans-African Productions would tape it. So it was a wonderful thing. You know, I moved to New York in 92 and they had already been doing that shit, right? And so for some reason, I don't know fucking why, they invited Cornel West to speak. And this is at a time when Cornel West and Skip Gates were relatively rising stars. They weren't well established. But Cornel West had been writing books about the relationship between blacks and Jews. And this was also around the time of the Crown Heights riots where a Hasidic Jewish rabbi killed this black kid named Calvin Gato, ran him over in the car. And then an ambulance came and took the rabbi who was driving the fucking car and left the black child there to die on the street. So of course, black people did what we have to do every time we want a little taste of justice in the system. We started fucking shit up and tearing shit. I wasn't there. This is before I had been to New York several times, but I hadn't quite moved there. And anyway, so people were curious about what this relationship between blacks and Jews, and the Hasidic people came here and are buying up property in this traditional black neighborhood. So they, for some reason, they brought Cornel West to talk at the UAM. And there was one caveat at the UAM. It was for black people only. They didn't even make a big fuss about it. They was like, this is a black-owned venue in the black community for black people exclusively. We don't allow no non-Africans to cross our threshold because y'all got everything else. Y'all doing everything else. This is a place for black scholarship, black culture. And Cornel West agreed to speak there. And then when he got there and he learned, because he had no organic relationship with the black community. He had no real presence in the black community. He didn't find out that it was a black exclusive space until he got there. And he said to them, I'm not going to speak. The real reason he didn't want to fucking speak is because him and Skip Gates had been dissing Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben and some other scholars. Ivan Van Sertima is talking about they were fake scholars because they were highlighting and emphasizing African influence in history. So this motherfucker said, Cornel West, I used to call him Coonel West. I stopped calling him Coonel West. I'll tell y'all why later. But let me finish telling y'all what this motherfucker did that y'all letting him get away with, live down. Dr. West said that he doesn't speak at segregated venues. And if he was asked to speak at a white venue and they didn't allow black people, he wouldn't speak. So it would be against his value system to speak at a black exclusive venue, which is his right. He has every fucking right. But what this motherfucker did is he went to the New York Post and New York Times and went to all these white media outlets and told, oh, they've got this black militant place that doesn't allow whites or anybody but African people. Now, if you were in Brooklyn in the 90s, you know that Brooklyn, Jamaicans, Trinidadians, Tobagoans, African Americans, Sudanese, Brooklyn was a melting pot. Like if you lived in Brooklyn back then, you could go to a Vodun drummer circle, to an Akan ritual, to a Yoruba shrine erection. You could go to herbalist from all over. Brooklyn was a mecca for African diaspora and African culture. It was unbelievable. Fulton, if you remember Fulton in the 90s, where Moshood and 40 Acres and a Mule studio and their store and the Brooklyn Moon Cafe, Senegalese restaurant, Ethiopian restaurant, of course, the Rastafarian Itai spot. Now, Brooklyn was the blackest shit I ever seen in my life. I visited there one time when I was like in the 8th grade and I moved there when I graduated. I moved to Brooklyn because I'm like, wow, I never seen anything like that. I never seen anything like that. Not saying it didn't exist other places. That's where I saw it. So it wasn't like you have a black only place. They'd let in the Senegalese brothers, you know, the Muslim Senegalese Francophone brothers. They let in the brothers from Nigeria. They let in the Jamaican Rastas. They let everybody from across the vast array of African culture was welcomed. And if they wanted to get up and share their insights and their scholarship, every black person was welcome. So it wasn't an exclusive place. at all. It was very inclusive for the global African community. And he got that venue shut down because he ran back to his white employers and told. And these were black people that were working off of donations and coming out of their own pockets. And he told, and that place got shut down. And the UAM eventually reopened in Harlem. They found another venue years later, but he greatly crippled their efforts and took a Brooklyn institution. And shout out to Miles McAfee. After a while, it was much less, wasn't as big, but at Medgar Evers College, he did start trying to recreate in Brooklyn what they lost when the UAM was shut down because of Cornel West snitching. He did try to recreate it, but it was much smaller. And I went there and saw Dr. Ben speak and Professor Mackey speak and all that. But it was a fraction of what we had. What Cornel West single-handedly got shut down. I never fucking forgive him for that. And anywhere he goes to talk to black people, that should be the first thing you ask him. How are you going to atone for that? What you took from Brooklyn, pre-gentrification Brooklyn. And the loss of the UAM, I will always say, played a big role in the gentrification of Brooklyn. So I wouldn't. But that's me. I mean, I'm not a party to, I'm not within the Black Power media circle, but that was my only thing. They really hyped up the fact that they were having Cornel West on the show. And he might have fucking he might be telling on them right now. Get them deplatformed. You know. And I called Cornel West after that. Since 92, I would call him Coonel West. But then he started going hard in the paint. And he was one of the few prominent black people that was actually talking aloud about Obama's war crimes and Obama's betrayal of the black community and his neoliberalism. So when he did that, I softened on him a little bit. Like, well, I'm glad that he's going on the white folks stations to call out Obama, because I mean, I called out Obama and called out his atrocities and war crimes and betrayal of his black constituents. But I couldn't go on Democracy Now! They don't call me on there. They don't call me on MSNBC, but they'll call Cornel West. So I just don't think that, we need to do that. But maybe it was a cross promotion. Maybe that brought attention to Black Power media that they otherwise wouldn't have. So maybe they got something out of it. But that's my thing on it. But beyond that, I'm happy. The more black radical, black progressive, black independent media, Black Power media that we have, the merrier. I wish all black media was Black Power media. If you have a media outlet, I don't care if you tap dancing, rapping, even like I love the concept of a conscious stripper, where somebody call Umar and tell him to give me the number of that conscious stripper so I can call and express my appreciation. Because whatever you do, do it conscious. Whatever you do it conscious. That's all I got to say. Everything you do should be black. If you're a teacher, you should be a Black Power teacher. If you're a plumber, be a Black Power goddamn plumber. So I'm glad that they came together to do that. I hope they hold it together and continue. I wish them much success, but don't platform coons unless you're going to do a deconstruction, takedown, ass whooping. But even then, you can do that without having them on. I could tell his shit without having them on. That's my thing. Okay, Phil Winter. All right. Yeah, ain't no disrespect. Phil Winter says that Black Power media is par excellence. Here we go again. James, yes, Black Power media is par excellence. So, okay. There you go. There you have it. I think it's excellence too. But you know me, I'm the Grinch. I'm the Black Power Grinch, as they call me. So I gotta find something bad to say. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? I'm from Kansas City, and we just known for it. It's called Killer City, State of Misery. But beyond that, I have no complaints. And like I said, shout out to Dr. Ball and Kwame and Kalanji, everybody over there. Anyway, James asks, how do we confront capitalism? Here's this rub about capitalism. I don't remember who said this quote, but there was some Western leftist, progressive. And he said, if humanity would just sit down for 24 hours capitalism would collapse. If we would stop fucking working for them. Because capitalism, and there's even a slogan now, we all know the 1%. We all know that Jeff Bezos and Donald Trump, the capitalist, the number of capitalists on this planet, true capitalists, not the stupid motherfuckers who ain't capitalists. Because if you are not in a position to live off your dividends, you are not a capitalist. If your unearned income is not your primary source of income, you are not a fucking capitalist. You might be pro-capitalist. You may support capitalists. You might be a bootlicking idiot, but you are a member of the working class, the working middle class, the working upper middle class, the working lower middle class, or the biggest population on the planet, the poor working class. You are a member of the working class. And if you are a member of the working class and you support the leisure class, the capitalists, you are fucking stupid. I don't give a fuck. Fuck your feelings at this point. It's late in the day. The life-sustaining capacity of the earth is being destroyed by the capitalists, and you are aiding them. There's no reason. You have no incentive to support capitalism or capitalists, unless you are a psychopath and you like to see shit burn and people suffer. And if that's the case, I hope you're not watching my YouTube. I don't want no people that far gone anywhere around me or paying attention to me. But what was your question? How do you confront capitalism? The real tragedy is capitalism could be obliterated if the working class people simply just sit down. We don't have to march. We don't have to take up arms. It would be what they call a bloodless coup d'etat, because they need us. There's no such thing as a self-made millionaire or a self-made billionaire. We already saw that they need us to work. Jeff fucking Bezos could not fucking do shit if every Amazon worker, every Amazon truck loader, every Amazon factory worker, everybody in the sweatshop in the third world making all those goods and services that he's sending, it's like, I'm done. Fuck you. If every farmer was like, fuck this shit. Well, I'm going to be out in this field sweating while a motherfucker in the commodities exchange market. You got people in Idaho. You got peasant farmers in Mexico farming and out in the field with the bugs and the sweat and the injuries. One of the most dangerous jobs in the world is agricultural work. But there's a motherfucker in downtown Chicago where the commodities exchange market is making money off of your labor who never been to a field. Michael Jordan making money off of shoes. He ain't never set foot in no goddamn shoe factory. Michael Jordan don't make no fucking shoes, but he makes more money than all the people who make the shoes put together. So we confront capitalism by simply uniting as workers, by becoming class conscious and engaging in class warfare. That anybody outside of our class, even if they look like us, even if they have the same race, religion, culture, ethnicity as us, if they are outside of our class strata, they are our enemy. And if you're like, wow, I don't want 1 billion fucking enemies, then fucking commit class suicide. Come down to our class level. So we confront capitalism. First, we have to be class conscious. Because if we aren't class conscious, then the world's going to do like it always does. The working classes hacking each other to fucking bits on behalf of the elites. I'm going to keep saying this shit. They say Trump is a real estate mogul. Can the motherfucker lay bricks? Can he run wires? Can he hang drywall? Has he ever fucking swung does he own a fucking hammer? You're not a fucking builder. And if you're not a builder, then you shouldn't be involved in real estate or buildings. Your name shouldn't be on a fucking building. I'd rather see the name of the thousands of men who built that and women who built that fucking building to see Trump's name across there when Trump ain't never ran a vacuum across the floor in that building. He ain't never unclogged a drain in his fucking life, but he owns the building. So we confront capitalism first with class consciousness and rationality. It doesn't make sense to have thousands of homes and hundreds of homeless people. I read a statistics one time. There's more than 370 homes available in the United States for every single homeless person. I read another article that said more than 40% of all food produced is thrown away. And we got hunger on the planet. And we produce enough food to feed the entire human population 2 to 3 times over. And the people who are producing that food often are malnourished. Under European imperialism, people who grow the food are malnourished. Under capitalism, the people who grow the food and they and their children suffer from malnourishment. The people who build the houses are homeless or home insecure. My father is a builder. He has a felony conviction since he was 17 years old, and he's in his 60s. And that felony has followed him. My father is a builder, and he has experienced homeless. My father has lived in transient hotels, and my father knows how to do plaster, drywall, electrical work. He knows how to lay hardwood floors. My father is a builder, yet has housing insecurity, has had housing insecurity in his life. He can't just go somewhere and fill out a leasing application because he has a felony. He couldn't go back to school because he couldn't get student loans because he has a felony. He couldn't even move into public housing because he has a felony. And a man in his 60s who was convicted of a felony as a fucking minor. So we need class consciousness, and then we need to become rational, start fucking thinking. I had a woman, a sister, whom I've known her since I was a freshman in high school. Known her most of my life. Conscious, Nubian queen. Since we were both in high school, we both did social justice activism. And just one day, I had made the statement that no one's done $1 billion worth of work. So if someone has $1 billion, that automatically means that they are a parasite, that they are exploiting the labor of other people. That's all that means. No one should be looking up to or admiring any billionaire. And she disagreed with me. And she felt that it would be wrong for us to go to Bezos or to fucking, can't even name, it'd be wrong to go to a billionaire and simply say, break yourself. We can't go to Trump and say, break yourself, motherfucker. We can't do that it's wrong. It's immoral for us to take money, to take a home from a person who has 10 homes and give it to a family that has no home. It would be wrong to go to a person with $1 billion and take half of their money and distribute it to 1 million people so that they can buy food and live dignified lives. She thinks that's immoral. So we're irrational. I mean, the cult of Christianity, the cult of Islam are horrible, but the cult of capitalism and the cult of fiat currency is the biggest fucking cult on the planet in history. So we have to, because a lot of times, I know you probably say, confront capitalism. We got to take up arms. We got to take to the streets. We got to burn shit. But when we take to the streets and we take up arms, like in South Africa, who overthrew apartheid, like all of sub-Saharan Africa, drove out all the colonialists, like in the Caribbean, drove out all the colonial powers. And then we put up black oligarchs and black capitalists, and we start praising black entrepreneurs. So fuck it. What's the point of ousting Western powers if we're going to reinstitute Western ways of doing shit and valuing shit? And I also say, the only thing worse than adopting the religion of your enslaver is adopting the economy of your enslaver. Because both of them will cause you to re-enslave yourself. So I think we got a lot of intellectual work to do, a lot of psychological work to do, a lot of counter indoctrination and counter propaganda and re-education to do. And if we can get our people to think different, then we can start functioning differently. Then we can start getting people to see the dollar is worth absolutely fucking nothing. There is no morality in earning and working hard. But now we got black people talking about I'm a hustler. That used to be an insult when I was coming up in the 70s, in the 50s. If you called my great-grandfather, Grandpa Bowie, if you called him a hustler, he said, no, I'm not a hustler. A hustler is basically a capitalist, someone who wants to get more out of something than what they put into it. So if you out here hustling, you're basically trying to extract more than you put in. A just man, a righteous man or a righteous woman will say, I want fair compensation for my inputs. I want just compensation for my work. A hustler says, I want it all, and I want to do next to nothing. The more work I have to do to get shit, the worse off I am. We got people out here bragging about how they grind. Oh, I grind. I get up at 3 a.m. I don't see my kids. I don't see my wife. I got 3 ulcers. But look at these Jordans. Look how nice my car is. And I'm about to buy a house 3 times size, a house that I live in. But you're fucking, literally we have promoted insanity to vanity, to something to be admired. Every time I go online and I see these motherfuckers, oh, look at my stocks, look at my house, look at this, I'm balling. I'd be like, wow, this motherfucker's insane. I don't see people bragging about the quality of air in their community. Like, wow, we did a particle. We tested the latex particles in the air. We tested the mercury and lead levels of the fucking water. We tested the biomass in the soil, and it's really getting better every year. We don't brag about that shit because we can't brag about it because the water's more contaminated, the air is more polluted, and the soil's more denatured every day. And that's the real value. That's what you need to live, not dollars. So capitalism is a fucking death cult. And we need to make our people to understand it psychologically and intellectually before we can get them to rise up against it on a material level, because we keep fucking rising up, we keep rioting, we keep fighting, and then we turn around and let Jay-Z's become goals, #goals. We turn around and let black billionaires be our heroes. I even got people in Chicago, which is worse off under Obama than it was under most other. But people are like bragging, oh, Obama's one of the richest ex-presidents. I saw people sharing pictures of the new mansion that Obama and Michelle bought, showing pictures of their gangly daughters. Those are class enemies, and the kids too. It's like Dr. Khalid Muhammad said, your oppressor's children are being raised to be oppressors of your children. The exploiters of your exploiters are raising their kids to exploit your children. So yes, class consciousness is the first step in intellectually understanding, and then a reevaluation. We need a Pan-African socialistic worldview, social theories, and then when our consciousness and our ideology is grounded, rational, scientific socialism, then we can start talking about action. But we want to skip to action because action, which I don't understand, the intellectual work, so many of our people are, I do understand because of Mentasai, the intellectual work, the groundwork, the foundational work for building a true liberation struggle, anti-capitalist struggle, is just so distasteful to so many people. They want to be out here marching with fucking guns, not fucking around coalition. They want to be out here in military fatigues, marching around like fucking idiots, accomplishing nothing but looking busy, as opposed to doing the groundwork necessary. So I don't even think, I think I created more. Sometimes when I respond to these questions, I feel like I create more questions than I answer. So I was exposed to, yeah, I was on Renegade. Okay, yeah. So it ain't no, it's all love. It's all love. It's a cooperation, not a competition. Okay, Mark. America has a long history. Do you have a suggestions of sources for someone who is just beginning to take interest in American history and policy? Oh, yes. This book right here is a good beginner. See this? There we go. People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. That's a good book. Howard Zinn was a leftist, progressive historian. Well, he calls himself a radical scholar. I wouldn't go that far to think he was a radical scholar. He was more of a reformist, but he was a consummate scholar. He was a white man. He used to work at Spelman. He was a history professor at Spelman. And I think in the 60s, or 50s. Well, one of those decades. And he was fired or forced out of Spelman because he was teaching radical history, people's history, bottom-up history. And people's history is basically, you have two modes of history. One is the great man theory of history, saying that there is a Martin Luther King for civil rights, and George Washington made America, and Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So you have great men, generally great men, Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, that history is made through the actions and will of great men. And that has been the dominant thinking of history since the Greco-Roman era. Since Aristotle and Plato was writing history and mythology, they'd always kind of center on a great man came along and changed society. Whereas people's history, which is a more accurate telling of history, says that history is made by the masses of the people. So the history of Amazon is not made by Jeff Bezos. The history of Amazon is made by the brother showing up at your doorstep through the pandemic. You know, the history of Ford is not made by Henry Ford, the Nazi. The history of Ford is made by the people, the men losing their limbs and dying and burning to death, or developing lung disease and other pulling muscles on the assembly line. Those are the men who created Ford and made the history of Ford. So that's what the people's history is. It's a complete bottom-up look at history. And if you're talking about American history, and then I think this is probably here we go. People's history of the United States. I mean, it's a nerdy, geeky book, long ass page, but I mean the bibliography is just so thorough. I've gotten so much out of the bibliography, but it's wow. I've read this all the way through twice, and I always reference it. And one reason I like referencing this is because Howard Zinn was a white man and a mainstream scholar. So whenever when I was in college and in grad school, whenever I wanted to talk about white folks like a dog and just really bang on white folks, I could always run to him or Howard Zinn, not Howard Zinn, but him or Noam Chomsky. And use them to be like, I didn't say it. I'm quoting this white man. I'm quoting your own brother who's talking about you. So he's what I call one of them takes one to know ones. Him, Michael Bradley, the Columbus conspiracy about the founding of America. Michael Parenti. He's a political scientist, but for some reason he doesn't know he's a political scientist because he's always writing histories. But he goes all the way back to U.S. labor history, Greco-Roman, but U.S. history. Read these white dudes. Takes one to know one. You know, you also have about the Americas, Eric Williams, the Caribbean and the Americas. So that's why I would say, if you're interested in American history and if you're interested in American policy, Noam Chomsky talks a lot about, you know, policy, internal politics and foreign policy. Very honest. More recently, Confessions of an Economic Hitman tells you about more so that even though you think the government is constructing and executing U.S. policy, it's more multinational corporations. So John Perkins is another guy. I'm naming all these crackers. Well, my problem is, I mean, white folks. Oh Lord, I'm sorry. I meant to say white folks. You know. But you know, you ask me about American history, I mostly go to white people for that, and I go to black people for black history. Oh, there's another book. It's up front. Before the Mayflower. That's another good book. Let me pull that up. I just feel bad. I met Lerone Bennett. He didn't live too hard. Before he died, I ran into Lerone Bennett. He lived right over here in Hyde Park. I'm in Bronzeville, but I live close enough to walk over there. I can't afford to live in Hyde Park, but I live close enough where I can go over there and siphon off some of that high class He's a very, 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 very thorough historian. I actually went to see some of his original source work at CSU. Chicago State University has one of the best Black archives, scholarly archives in the Midwest. Because I have to, when I say it has the best, you have to limit where you say the best. Because if I say, well, now even say in the Midwest, people are gonna be like the Black archives in Missouri, Kansas City. But this here is the book. I just don't feel right if I don't name a Black book. I'm already feeling kind of Tommy. Fuck Amazon. Let me find a non-Amazon site to show y'all this book. Here we go. Lerone Bennett Jr., who's an African historian, who, and this book is better for Black people, the Black experience in the United States. This book is better than it's better than A People's History, but The People's History focuses on a wider, god damn it. I want to pull it up for you just so you can see the cover. I don't want to run up front. Let's see if it's here. I don't want to run up front and look on the bookshelf. And even if I ran up in front, I'm so bad at scanning the bookshelf. Whenever I need a book, I always have to go to my wife and be like, "Where's this book?" And if I'm just killing time while I pull it up. Whenever I need a book, I don't know. I know she ain't watching. So what I do whenever I need a book is I go and I accuse Dr. Mingo. What the blood clot? I go and accuse Dr. Mingo of having taken the book. And because she's a professor, so sometimes, like I think one time she took one of my books to use in one of her classrooms and left it in her office on campus. And I never let her forget that. So now she's like, I'm not going to take any more of your books. So whenever I can't find a book and I need to reference a book, I always accuse her of taking it. Like, let's see. I'd be like, Erica, where the hell is my book? She's like, what book? I ain't touched your books. I'm like, no, you took my book, Disposable People. Where's my Disposable People book? And she's like, I didn't take your book. And then she'll go to the, what the blood clot? This is ridiculous. Anyway, she'll be like, I didn't get your book. And then she'll stomp over to the bookshelf. And this is insane. I can't pull it up. She'll stomp over to the bookshelf and find the book. Here's the book right here. You said I took your book, and here's the book sitting right here. And I'd be like, oh, real talk, man. I mean, I got to get in where I fit in. You know what I'm saying? I got to do what I got to do to make it in this world. But anyway, I guess I was trying to pull it up, and it's just I can't get the damn thing on the thing. Oh, I found a copy of it for. Okay. Here we go. I'm just gonna pull this shit up. I'm getting frustrated. Here's the book before the Mayflower. This is it. How do I enlarge the screen? There we go. Boom, boom, boom. This book. Let me just take your. I ain't gonna take your comment. But by Dr. Lerone Bennett, Before the Mayflower. Is this Amazon? No, this is 8 books. You can get you a copy. Damn. $75 used from $8.99. But I have a copy of this book. I read this book. Let me tell you one more thing, even though you didn't ask me. But this book is a history of Black America. So that's the book you want for Black America. But I was at a Southern summer camp, right? I'll just give you time to look it over if you want to write something down. Let's pull this out. You can get the ISBN by Dr. And I actually had the good chance of meeting Dr. Lerone Bennett. And he lived in Hyde Park. And I was just over there roaming around, trying to act like I belonged, like I could afford to live over there. And I looked, and I'm like, that looked like Lerone Bennett, that old dude. He was very old. And I'm like, nah, Lerone Bennett wouldn't just be roaming around Hyde Park. And it turns out he was. And anyway, I first read this book. I was a senior in high school, and I was a block brother. I worked for the Boys and Girls Club as a block brother, and I went to Kanakuk, which was this Christian summer camp for underprivileged kids. Long story short, I was always getting into trouble and conflicts at the Christian summer camp because I didn't like how the Christian summer camp was indoctrinating black kids. So anyway, long story short, I was basically relieved of my duties, but because we were on the Missouri-Tennessee border in the middle of nowhere, I had to wait for the bus to come back to take us. And they were like, we don't want you doing anything. We don't want you doing any of your camp counselor duties. Just leave us all alone to praise Jesus and enjoy the wilderness. So I would get up out of my cabin. I would go to breakfast, and I would go to the lake sometimes, and I would just pull out this book and read it. And so I read this over like 4 days in the summer. So this book has always had a special place in my heart because it helped me get through Christian summer camp. And I went down there, but it was okay because I was literally essentially being paid to read that book I got that book from the Christian summer camp library. I don't know why it was in there, because I just went there because I was like, well, they won't let me work with the children. They won't let me do any like canteen duties. They just want me to stay away from everybody. So I would just roam around the camp like Jason. And I found that book. And I'm like, wow, what is this book? And of course I stole the book. I mean, them Christians didn't have no use for it. And that was that. Okay. Cornel West was humbled by that interview on Black Power Media. You could clearly see he was thinking, good, I guess. I didn't watch it. I don't really mess with him too tough. But like I said, that's my only complaint. It's just my hateration of Cornel West. I just didn't want to see him. He's not worthy to sit across from Dr. Ball. That's my thing. Where we at? Oh, you were a teen. Did you live in New York then, Phil? Did you get you some VCRs and shit in the Crown Heights Rebellion? Oh, okay. I'm getting some feedback. They were very critical of Dr. Cornel West during the interview. They really held his feet to the fire. Good. Did they bring up him getting the UAM shut down in Brooklyn? The African bootleggers. They weren't bootleggers. They were pro-African propagandists. I used to be a bootlegger. That's when you used to take those tapes of lectures and copy them and sell them on the street. Did you buy my tape? I had a tape way back in 2000 called Liberation Tangible and Obtainable. Professor Mackey invited me to give a lecture, and I had never really given a lecture, public talk before. So that was my first public talk. And I remember Sonetta used to sell it. I look at it now like, oh, but, that was like my first public talk. I was more like Dr. Umardi, and I was the alpha male. I wasn't very rational. I was very militant, but not very rational back then. But, growth. Why do you think so many laborers have issues with joining unions? The reason laborers have issues with joining unions is because it's the union fault. The first labor union I ever joined was the 1199 Healthcare Workers Union. And I was so proud because I was always, all my life, a big fan of labor unions. And one thing that disappointed me more than anything else is when I went to the orientation for the union and I was told about my rights and the guarantees that I secured from the union. The one thing they didn't talk about was the history of the labor movement. And so they didn't tell workers about the history of the labor movement. United States has the privilege of having had the most violent, bloody, militant labor movement of any industrialized country in the history of the world. The U.S. labor union was bloody, and the U.S. labor union, like May Day and U.S. labor uprising, set the tone for all other labor unions all over the Western world, industrialized world. And that history has been erased. And so since the unions don't educate the public, nor do they educate the members, the unions always focus when they're interacting with their membership on the benefits and earnings. benefits and earnings and job protections. They don't focus on the ideology. They don't focus on the history. And so since most labor unionists are not ideological or historical, they're very easily manipulated or bought. That's the thing with Jovenel Moïse, the Haitian president. You don't want your bodyguards to be there because you pay them. You want them to be there because they believe in you. Even as strong as the lure of money is, if you can get a man to accept the ideological foundations of what he's doing and why he's doing it, he's much better. Mercenaries are people who are paid to fight. Soldiers are people who are manipulated to fight through patriotism. But warriors are people who are self-motivated ideologically. So we need warriors, not soldiers or mercenaries. So it's the same thing with workers. You need militant ideological unions, not economic unions. So the reason unions are so fucking weak, have been hollowed out and almost obliterated in the US, is because they don't have labor history knowledge and they don't have the labor union ideology. If you look at other nations like France, every time the France tries to raise gas prices, the truckers, the farmers, they are very militant unions. If you look at Germany, the German unions have stuck to the Marxist foundations of labor unions and say, hey, we want ownership of the means of production. So in Germany, representative of laborers have to sit on the boards of every company, every unionized company. But the unions in the United States started focusing strictly on money. We're going to get you more money. We're going to get you more job security. We're going to get you more benefits, which is great. But all the money and benefits and security in the world don't mean much if you don't have power. Like the labor unions here in Chicago, the teachers union, which is probably one of the most powerful unions, except for police unions. Fuck police unions. Police don't have a labor union. The police union is an anti-labor union. So police unions aren't real unions, but real labor unions, because policemen don't do labor. Policing and harassing and killing people is not labor. But teachers unions, if you talk to the average teachers, I've been to several protests. Before my wife became a professor at a university, she was a high school teacher at the Chicago public schools, and I would go to their various marches, and I would talk to the teachers on the protest line, holding up my teachers union sign, and I'd ask them about the ideas and this. They didn't know shit. All they was like, they're gonna give us our money. Which, get your money, boo boo. I ain't against it. Get your money. But getting a high paying job with no autonomy, no power. So they would give the teachers money, but then they would put these restrictive rules on them. And they turned teaching from a profession to a job where the teachers had no autonomy in the classroom. You have to teach this and teach to the test. They had no real autonomy within the institution. They had no real power, but they got good money and they had good retirement benefits and good healthcare and dental, but no power. Humans can't, we're not simply machines for consumption. We are creative beings. So that's the problem. That's why labor unions. And because people don't know, the labor unions don't teach the history, the corporate media, the anti-union, the unions, they're all with the mafia. They're all criminal and all corrupt. So if you look at unions, or union representation in corporate media, it's always corruption and stealing and insidious mafia type shit. So that's why. Propaganda. And ultimately, the unions weren't supposed to be permanent in capitalism. If you look at Marx's analysis, which he didn't really anticipate labor unions, but if you look at the early militant unions, the labor unions' ultimate goal was not benefits and good jobs and job security. The ultimate purpose for unifying workers is so that they could seize the means of production. The ultimate goal for unionizing workers is so that the workers can take it over. So you unionize a Amazon plant so that eventually the workers seize full control of the plant and stop sending money and dividends to the shareholders. That was the purpose of labor unions, which they lost their ultimate purpose to. So I support labor unions, but I think we need to get back to the militant labor struggle. And if you're in a union and you're not a socialist, you're pretty much running on a hamster wheel, because without socialism, labor unions are doomed, because all unions do is try their best to hold on as the capitalists regroup to tear them down. You can never trust an African who's soft on Zionism. Absolutely. And that is Cornel West. You can never. But before he was even boosting Zionism, he was attacking. The reason they got him and Skip Gates got to where they were is because they called Dr. Cornel West and Dr. Ben demagogues and teachers of hate. They were teaching hate. The Black Books movement in the 90s was emerging, and they got black scholars. The white folks was like, well, we can't send white scholars to challenge these black scholars, because black people, as they're increasing their consciousness, don't want to listen to white folks, because we've been lying to them since slavery. So then they went, it's like, we got to go get our own black scholars and put them up in Harvard and Yale and Princeton, and then have them attack the black emerging radical Afrocentric scholars on our behalf. And that's what Cornel West, that's how he got established, being a scholarly attack dog for white academia. Okay. The question is, glad I made it. What books could you recommend for political strategy from a Pan-African perspective? Also, how can we create elites that work in the best interest of the people? Wow. But the one book in terms of basic, Oba Tashaka is a scholar, another scholar that I've met. He was mad at me last time I met him because we were supposed to drive him to the airport, and something about these old scholars, they like to be on time. So we were running a little bit late to the airport, and he thought that he was going to miss his plane, so he kind of was snapped at me. So don't ask Oba Tashaka about Bro.Diallo. Like, hey, Baba, Dr. Oba, Bro.Diallo? Don't ask him that, because then he's going to probably hate on you like he was mad at me. But we got him to the airport, and we got him off in time. So he wasn't happy. But beyond that, he wrote this book called The Art of Leadership by Oba Tashaka. This is volume 2. And it's really a book strictly about how to formulate and operate Black organizations. This is volume 2, but let me pull up volume 1. Volume 1 is better than volume 2, in my opinion, but I got to be careful with, and the people on the cover are better too. So this is volume 1. Why is the image so small? Let's see if I can pull it up. The Art of Leadership. Oh, goddamn internet. The Art of Leadership by Oba Tashaka is a very good introduction. You can see the cover somewhat, but the ISBN number. The Art of Leadership by Dr. Oba Tashaka is probably your best bet in terms of political strategy, how to create a political organization, how to operate and establish yourself within a community, whether it's a local, national, regional community. This is a really good instructional book. It gives you a lot of the ideas and philosophies, but I mean, it just really breaks it down so coherently, especially if you're new. There are other books on policy and institution building, but they get kind of heady and full of themselves. But I would recommend that book for that. The first half of your question, in terms of how can we create elites that work for the best interests of the people, the way you get elites to work in your interest is to be able to level consequences against them. So we have to put the Black elites in a position where working for the interest of Black people is beneficial, and where working against the interest of African people is risky, where they can risk their status, risk their standing, risk their wealth, and risk their lives by betraying the interest or going against the interest of African people. It's that simple. It's nothing complex. You reward people who hold to the unity. You sanction people who violate the unity. That's how you hold people accountable. Dr. Wright said it. Behavior is developed and maintained by its consequences. Right now, we are in a state that people who betray the African masses get as much support from African people as people who are loyal to the African masses. Therefore, there is no real incentive for any individual to hold to the loyalty of African people. Kanye West can go on national television or go across viral on the internet by saying, disrespecting every African on the planet by saying slavery was a choice, or sitting across an overt racist like Trump. And at the same time, I walk into my community and all I see are Yeezy sliders and Yeezy sneakers everywhere. Loyalty to the Black community is not a prerequisite for loyalty from the Black community. Write that down. This is a great tragedy. Loyalty to the Black community is not a prerequisite for loyalty from the Black community. We have to change that. We are loyal to people who demonstrate as a collective, who demonstrate no loyalty to us as a community or a collective. So every Negro elite, whenever they're taking any action that is political or economic, the first thing they should think to themselves is, how would this be received or perceived by the Black community or some revolutionary faction within the Black community? And then they say, well, this will be either the Black community is in support of this action or indifferent to this action, I can do it. But if they're against it, I will not do it because the consequences are too great. Right now, Negro elite, whether that is a Black Democratic politician or a millionaire Black celebrity or some prominent Black athlete, the first thing they ask themselves is, will this action that I take, first, offend white people? Number two, will it enrich me or not? The fact of how the Black masses will take it is all but irrelevant to them. We have to change that. We have to do the work necessary to change that. And in order to do the work necessary to change that, we need to develop an internal system of consequences and an internal system of reward. And so if we do have a prominent Black person, whatever they're prominent in, they are mathematical, economic, or in terms of skill or entertainment, we have to throw publicly as much weight and love and support to Black people who hold to our unity and who represent our interest. And we have to shun, exclude, expel Black people who don't. And I don't care if white folks embrace them or any other race of people embrace them. Black people should turn their backs on it. You can start doing that now. I personally and currently do that, but we have to make that institutional and cultural. Treason should be the highest offense. Should be the highest offense. You know, that's the only other capital crime really in the United States is treason and murder. So they put treason, betraying the nation or betraying the people, on equal footing as killing another person. And I agree with white folks. If I don't agree with white folks on nothing else, I don't support capital punishment. But I do think that treason against your people, going against the interest of your own community, should be held up as high as murder. And if you don't fuck with murderers, you shouldn't fuck with traitors. Okay, that's it. I think I did well with that question. Diallo, what is your ideal model of an African-centered education institution? Oh man, I got to get Marcus Klein on here. You know, that's a good one. But I would say one feature. My child attended the African-centered collegiate campus in Kansas City, Missouri, which at that time was the largest African-centered school area in the country. It was the only African-centered school that was where you could take your child from pre-K all the way up to high school graduation in a completely encased. Now, of course, the city undermined and snatched that away from the National Black United Front, but you know, fun while it lasted. And my son went there while we were living in Kansas City. But one thing that bothered me was, first of all, an African-centered education needs an African-centered society. So I think Too many African-centered schools focus on building up the child as an individual, but don't work hard enough to create revolutionaries that are united with people. So there's a lot of emphasis on personal development of the child, but there should also be emphasis on turning that child into a revolutionary freedom fighter. So those children need to know, as you go on to greater heights, your obligation is not to go and become individually successful. We're educating you to go out and dismantle the systems and institutions of capitalism and global wide domination and liberate African people and build African power. I don't think that's done well enough. I talked to this one guy who was a graduate of the Garvey School. He was the same age as me. We were both in our 30s, and he had went to one of the most famous African-centered schools in the nation, the Garvey School in California, and he was very much a product of African-centered education, very intelligent, articulate, very motivated and inspired, but he had no revolutionary consciousness. He had, African-centered school is good for building up the esteem and awakening the intellectual capacity of young people. But so many graduates of African-centered schools do not go on to be Pan-African revolutionaries or revolutionary in any sense. They go on to be well-accomplished individuals, but fucking well-accomplished individuals often are an asset to our oppressors more so than an asset to us. So I think that an educational institution needs to be a revolutionary institution. We need to educate our young people on how to overthrow capitalism and white hegemony, not just educate them on how to achieve within it. Too many African-centered schools are focused too heavily on Black achievement within the system as opposed to Black dismantling of the system. But other than that, I'm not really an educator. I've taught school maybe for 4 months. I ain't built for that school education. Teaching children. So I'm not one to really play or hate. But that's what, if you ask me, you ask the question. I wouldn't go kick in somebody's school of an educator. Like I tell my wife, I don't come to your classroom and bore your students. So don't come try to tell me how to do my things, because I'm just not really built for that, teaching kids. But that's what I would do. If I was tasked and someone forced me to have to do that, that's what I would focus on in terms of the institutional mission and the curriculum. I would tell the kids, if you don't use whatever skills and talents that you develop as you go on for collective liberation, to build organization or to join an organization to dismantle the system and institutions of our oppressors, then you failed at life. See, and you can't tell that stuff to kids. I got no business. They don't know. They can't let me around kids. How do we as working class people do that and survive daily? Is it a process or just jump off the ledge? It's a process. One thing revolutionary individuals and revolutionary organizations have to do is be mindful of people's material and psycho-emotional needs. You cannot use people as instruments or weapons. Tell the people, rise up, get your gun, let's hit the streets. So you have to do develop mutual support and mutual defense. There are enough resources and tasks and resources and work to do where we can be self-sustaining. So we have to stop thinking in terms of money and think in terms of resources and access and opportunities. So as you are bringing down the system, which you are forced to be a part of, you can sustain yourself at the same time. I think that the guerrilla practices, guerrilla economics, guerrilla warfare, guerrilla family units, guerrilla warfare in means of navigating the system. Or as Mao Zedong said, the people are the water, the revolutionary is the fish. I don't like these Black organizations that like to extract people from the community and have them wear different uniforms, speak a different language, and take different titles away from the community, and you claim you're revolutionary or a freedom fighter. If you see me out in the street, I look like everybody else. I move like everybody else. I don't claim to be separate or above or apart from the people because I'm revolutionary and they aren't. So revolutionaries can survive by working, trading, building, buying, selling, participating in the system. But we use the resources and every opportunity at ourselves to, number one, subvert the system. Number to educate other people about the contradictions and the non-viability and unjustness of the system, and then integrate them into our subversive work. That's how that goes. But no, I don't like telling people to do, take up arms and fuck this shit. That's irrational, it's reactionary, and it's doomed to failure. Revolution is a process, it is an event. But what you do is, like Claude Anderson said, is when you have power, you execute power. So if you do have some level of influence, you fully exercise that. You don't get beyond, or as in battle, they say you don't go beyond your supply lines. So if everybody in your organization is working a little job, then y'all don't get out there and do the type of organization or community work that'll get people fired or get people in trouble. You do the work that people can do while sustaining their livelihood. But then at that same time, you're pulling your resources so that you can have enough that when you have to do the work that can risk your job, then you have means of housing, feeding, clothing people, and not just housing, feed basics, but entertaining people and letting them have creative outlets. But then as you get there and you got those monetary and material resources, then you start doing work that could perhaps get people incarcerated. So do you have the resources for lawyers? Do you have the resources to support families whose breadwinners are in jail? Do you have resources to get people out of the country? So whatever work you do in terms of Black liberation, Black empowerment, and subverting the system, it has to be, you don't outstretch your resources and your capacity. You work within your capacity and you build capacity as you work within capacity. And once you expand capacity, you can expand your mission. And it's gradual, but it needs to be intense and ongoing. I hope that explains it. But let me see. I'm going to do more in detail into this. I'm going to write about this more. But thanks for that question. Oh, man, it's 9:30. I'm going to have to wrap this up. Let me take one more question. And my tea is almost over. I'm only here for the tea. I ain't even here for I just do this as an excuse to drink my green tea. My wife don't like me drinking this caffeinated green tea late at night, so I'm like, I'm doing Q&A. I have to have a tea late. She don't like me having it late. So that's the only reason I'm here with y'all, because more manipulation. Now, I got to stop telling self-snitching, because y'all know y'all going to be in Dr. Mingo's page. He makes you look for his books by accusing you of losing them. And I mean, I've been doing that for years, and she ain't seen it. Yeah, Elon Musk. I was trying to think of that name. Elon Musk, South African apartheid, and Bill Gates. He's a welfare whore. He got rich off of government contracts and set aside. But I digress. Let me see. Well, I really appreciate. Oh, Prester's here. Prester's mad. I got the vaccine, and he mad at me for that. So I got the magnetic skin, and I got. Let's see. I did get the vaccine. I ain't really got nothing metal. Oh, I got a paper clip. Let's see if I'm magnetic. I did get the vaccine months ago. Let's see if I became magnetic. I'm magnetic. You're right, Prester. Look at it. Somebody come look at this. Look at this. I'm magnetic. Well, damn. Shouldn't have got that shot. You're right. I'm magnetic. Don't let me stop. What it is it's hot as hell in here. Let's see. Let me see if I don't have a kerchief. I can wipe away the sweat and see if we can get magnetic. Oh, no. My magnetism. Boy, if I was magnetic, y'all don't want me to be magnetic, because I'd be out there, I'd be Magneto in y'all ass. See, when I wipe away the excess sweat, look at this. Watch it. All right. The oil, sebaceous glands. Oh, I'm still magnetic. Oh, see, they don't stick as well. But when I'm sweaty and sticky, I didn't wipe over here. Your boy is magnetic. You have these glands in your skin. Let me just talk to some of that shit. Here it is, sebaceous glands. You have these glands in your skin that emit, what the hell? Here it is. Let me just show y'all something. You have these things in your skin called sebaceous glands, right? Let me just pull this up. This is the anatomy of your skin. Encyclopedia Britannica. You have these sebaceous glands, and they're small oil-producing glands in your skin throughout your skin. And that oil, naturally produced oil that all human people have, small oil-producing glands present in the skin of mammals. And I'm sorry, I know some of y'all who believe Jesus Christ created your ancestors out of the mud don't believe that you're an animal. But we are primates, bipedal primates. Sebaceous glands are usually attached to hair follicles and release a fatty substance, sebum, into the follicular duct, and hence, therefore, and thence to the surface of the skin. The glands are distributed over the entire body, with the exceptions of the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet. Right? That's where you don't have any sebaceous glands. So nothing sticks there. See that? I'm not magnetic on my hands because I don't have sebaceous. Oh, sorry. Let me do that. I don't have sebaceous glands on my freaking hands. But because I have it everywhere else, I have an oily, we all have it, residue on our skins. So they got a picture of it. Let me show you. You see here, this is your epidermis, your dermis, and this is the sweat gland, and your fatty deposits. And there's the oil gland at the base of a hair follicle. You see that? And so your skin is basically can be sticky, especially the more you sweat and you got the oil. And me, when I get out the shower, I put on the butters and all of that. So your skin can be sticky. And I don't know, and now y'all gonna be like, this brother got bad hygiene. So it's not magnetism. Stickiness. And it's hot as hell because it's been cold here a couple of days. We turn off the AC, and then as soon as we turn off the AC, it gets hot again. You know how Chicago do. So anyway, Prester is mad because he don't want us to get the vaccines. But I mean, I've already gave the whole vaccine talk. Go back and look at some previous stuff. I can't keep doing this with you, Prester. I mean, why these people, man, got such stamina? How do I create and edit the thumbnail? Magic. I use Canva. I have a Canva account. Let me see. Telling y'all all my secrets, man. Y'all don't want to see how the sausage is made. But it's almost time to wrap up. So I make it in Canva. This is not a commercial for Canva, but you ask and ye shall receive. So I go to this website called Canva, and then I just start to come up and use my imagination. I can put images and lettering and move it around and manipulate it and big it up and shrink it down. This is how I do it. So now they have templates, but I hate the templates. So I just tend to make my own shit. But here it is. I'll show you the canva.com, canva.com. And see, that's how I made that. And then I downloaded it and then I uploaded it. And there it is. Magic. I use my magnetic abilities. So Canva, it's very easy to use. You ain't got to have no graphic design or nothing. You just got to have an imagination. So I made this. It's original, but that's how I do. All right. Anyway, where I got to bring myself back. Here I is. Okay. Disposable People. I've been looking for that book. I didn't got my. I actually believe Dr. Mingo took my Disposable People book to teach her behavioral science class. I actually believe it when I don't. But like I said, if I'm looking for like Before the Mayflower, that book, I got bookshelves here and bookshelves up front. And if I said Dr. Mingo, I don't call her Dr. Mingo. If I say Erica, what did you do in my Before the Mayflower book? Last I had it, I had it on my nightstand and now it's gone. She's like, I didn't take that book. And then she goes scan the bookshelf and get the book and be like, here's the damn book. I know I didn't take it. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, damn, you're right. I don't deserve it. I'm a hustler, baby. I'm a hustler, baby. Just want you to know. That's my little hamburger hustles. That's the best I can do. I'm not really good at playing with women's mans. I didn't listen to enough Too Short growing up, so I don't really know how to do anything besides trick a woman into finding books for me. As far as giving me all her money and all that, I don't know how to do that. I didn't listen to enough Too Short. Anyway, thriftbooks.com. Chauncey is saying that's a good book. I just finished volume 1 of Endgame by Derek Jensen. It's good. It is a good book. Don't bother reading volume 2. It's a lot of repetition in volume 2. I might do a book review on that. But the author, he fell out of favor with the left because the left don't like his position on trans women. Derek Jensen has a history of physical and sexual abuse by his father. And so he thinks that transgender women, there's a strong potential for men to, what he believes, to pretend to be trans and then enter into spaces for women and be more abusive and exploitative and things like that. So, and he thinks that the gay rights movement has an element of pedophiles in it. And, it's a mess, man. But because the left rejected Derek Jensen because of his stance on trans rights and trans exploitation, he started moving more to the right and attacking liberals and lumping liberals in with leftists. And he's starting to move to the right. So I think that, which is, I've even spoke to Derek Jensen and I'm like, the fuck, you moving to the right wing. Just because you have issues internally in the left don't justify moving to the right. Move it to the left. Yeah, but that's my thing. If you ain't a leftist, you're a piece of shit. Liberal is not enough. And Phil, on Thrift Books, in that link Chauncey gave before the Mayflower, $8 we ship. Okay, that's good, man. Y'all good. If I'm gonna have to ask y'all to find me some books. All right. More love for Dr. Ball. Yeah, y'all tell him I ain't got no beef. I don't want no intellectual beef in these streets. Scholarly beef is worse than gang beef. We be braining. So yeah, shout out to Dr. Ball. He's got a good sense of humor. And y'all, I have to take y'all word for it. I didn't watch that goddamn Coonell West shit. Okay. This is the last question of the night because I'm tired. Bro.Diallo, do you think the practice of polygamy can help us become stronger and progress faster? No, I don't think that it will help us to become stronger or progress faster. Simply be saying it's because poly or polyamorous or polygamous relationships aren't any different than monogamous relationships. When I was taking martial arts, Brother Woza Vega was the martial arts instructor. He was an active polygamist. And many of the students in his martial arts class were, not many, but some were also polygamists. And because a lot of his students came out of the Asara Set Society, and the Asara Set Society, which is a Kemetic spiritual community, also practiced polygamy. Like the Shechem or Shechem, the leader of the Asara Set Society, had like 7 wives. So anyway, having spent so much time around polygamist individuals, people in polygamous relationships, you'll pretty much see, despite what we who are indoctrinated to think that we have to be in monogamous holy matrimony, permanent bonds, or will burn in hell, we who are indoctrinated into Western nuclear family model, you will find that they're pretty much just like regular. It's like when gay people say we want gay marriage, and we thought it'd be whips and chains and shit. And I know this lesbian couple, they just bought a cat and a dog and a house, and they have a daughter, and they just boring as hell on the surface. So most couples, whether they're poly or mono, are pretty much the same. Getting groceries, yelling at the kids, petty disputes, trying to divvy up the labor and trying to function and navigate the world. So that alone is not good enough. You would need a revolutionary couple, poly couple. They have to make a conscious effort to use their time, talent, and resources to empower the African community. It has to be a conscious, simply, and you get a lot of people that do that. Well, I get my degree and that's empowerment. No, it's not. What the fuck are you doing with your degree? Or I take on a second wife, that's empowerment. No, it's not. What are you and your wives doing? I take on a second husband and that's empowerment. No, that's not inherently powerful, because guess what? Our oppressors can do the same thing. You know, you have in the Islamic world, you have a lot of polygamy, and Islam allows for a man, I think, to have up to 4 wives. I don't know, you know, but Allah allows men to have, but there's no strength or progress that comes from that. There's a lot of repression. So although especially maybe, just maybe, but often I don't see this happening either, when there is a deficit in population, where a lot of times the men go off to war, you know, or there's some other type of upheaval and there's not enough men to go around for the women, mass incarceration, that can help to meet giving someone a support network and intimate contact. Or if you have a situation where there is some type of conflict, or you have issues like where there's murder, where you have whole societies like in China, India, Pakistan, where girls were devalued. And there were, if a woman found out, even in Saudi Arabia, that they were pregnant with a daughter, they would abort the child because sons were prioritized because of patriarchy, Abrahamic religion, and capitalism. They would prioritize males over girls. And after a couple of generations of doing that, you're going to have an abundance of men and very few women. So in those situations, polyamorous relationships where a woman will take on several husbands or be in active, intimate, and romantic relationships with men. So there are certain structural issues that polygamy can, or polyism, because there's several types of polys. You have couple on couple, you know, several, you know, we tend to focus on a man having several wives, but and again, we live in a patriarchal society, so of course we would prioritize the man having all the wives, but there are several throughout many cultures, and in fact polyism is not the norm. But you get some people that will be in a poly relationship and they like, wow, we're so progressive, and that doesn't make you progressive. You have right-wing conservative Mormons who are extremely reactionary and extremely regressive, and they're in poly relationships. So even if you are progressive or forward-thinking or open-minded enough to be in a polyamorous or polygamous or poly relationship, don't pat yourself on the back thinking that you're bringing down the system doing that. You have to say, well, me and my wives, or me and my husbands, or me and my lovers, or me and my intimate partners, we are going to pull our resources, build stable families and a comfortable home for everyone, and take care of everyone's psycho-emotional needs. And when that's done, we about to get out here and subvert the systems and institutions of imperialism, white hegemony, and capitalism. You still got to do it. It don't come automatic. So, but I appreciate the question. But I absolutely, but I do support polyism. Shout out to that. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the nuclear family in the context of Western culture and capitalist production units and human oppression. All right, so that's it. Hey, can I squeeze in? Oh, James, y'all want to talk about COVID? Y'all is avoiding. Prester John, would you debate Kidi Awadu on COVID? I don't consider myself an expert on COVID, so my view is a layman's view. I'd be very interested on Dr. on fake Dr. Keedy, Brother Keedy, the Conscious Rasta's views on it. But my arena, even though I do have I worked as a radiographer, I did take, anatomy and physiology and pathology. This COVID thing, I'm not sure that we would have strong disagreements about COVID. I have to know his views before I would say I would debate him. If he has some really absurdist views, which I wouldn't think he would have, I'd be willing to debate if I think he has some absurdist views. Like if he was saying we become magnetic, I could dispute that. But, I was supposed to debate Keedy about the homosexual agenda, actually. And I didn't want to debate Keedy about the homosexuals, because when the brother called and said, do you want to debate the gay agenda or homosexuality against Keedy, I told him, you should probably ask a gay person or a lesbian or a queer or intersex or transgender person to debate. What the fuck I look like debating? Yeah, I'm heterosexual cisgender dude. And so I gave him some LGBTQ conscious, progressive, revolutionary LGBTQ people to ask to debate the issue of the gay agenda. But when he contacted them people told him to fuck off, which I don't blame him. If a racist called me and said, do you want to debate whether or not black people are inferior? I would tell the racist, fuck off. I'm not debating that. So if you're trying to, if you take the position that the gay people are an existential threat to the black community, and, and you call somebody and you want me to debate my validity, I don't blame them. I was hoping that some of the people I sent them to, hey, all right, I'm on my last question. But anyway, I said, fine. I'll just come in, not as a representative. I would just, because my thing is the rationality of an argument. That's my investment. So I was called to debate Keedy, but the problem was I had another panel discussion on, I think it was Friends of the Congo. I had agreed with them, and some of y'all be calling me to do panel discussions like a month out, and I don't be thinking a month ahead. I'm a wild dude. I live by the seat of my pants, day to day. I don't be planning a month out. Who does that in life? I'm not that together. But like I said, I would have to know his position. And like I said, I don't think I would conflict on many of his views on it, but I don't know. And I didn't duck him on that gay or LGBTQ debate. I had a scheduling conflict, but tell Baba Keedy, I actually had him on the BroDiallo show. I'd like to get him on for a Q&A anyway. Maybe I will have him on for a Q&A. So yeah, thanks for bringing up Keedy. I actually do admire an LIB radio. I was just watching his live broadcast yesterday. Anyway, I'm going to have to wrap it up here. Dr. Mingo just came in and said, wrap it up. And I was supposed to wrap it up half an hour ago. Anyway, I will see y'all. I don't know about Monday. I don't know what to tell y'all. I know what to tell y'all. Support the BroDiallo show. Support our progressive, independent, Pan-Africanist media. You'll see scrolling down the screen below how you can support. I'd much greatly appreciate it. Until next time, BroDiallo, shout out Johnson. Shout out to Black Power Media and Dr. Ball. And shout out to all people trying to radicalize our African people using rational arguments and evidence-based analysis. That's it. Peace.